Welcome to day number 42, the magical day of ZenMadman's Nutty Pot Limit Omaha journey. I think it's like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference or some such, and an X-Files reference as well. I believe Mulder lived in apartment 42. This would be a decent flop for my hand. My hand probably plays pretty decently heads up. Multi-way, I'm not so sure. This is a spot that now I am trying to refine, so we're gonna hit that post session in the post session review. Full pot bet from somebody who decided not to c-bet the flop. Rather curious. They could be check raising with a hand like Jack 8 on the flop. They could be bluffing with a hand like, I don't know. Anyway, King Queen got here. The overwrap got here. They had 10s and 7s, and they decided to check the flop, which is sensible. The turn bet, though, I think is a little overzealous. It's kind of like, oh, you don't have a straight? Okay, I'm going to bet a lot and you're going to fold, right? And then they're like, no, I'm not going to fold. And they got there. As we see, they made jacks and 9s. They had the flush draw and they had a gut shot. So that's kind of where they were headed with that one. Let's top off. Should we get to a spot where we can, get the full double? There's 3 opponents so far. This one, I guess we saw open limp earlier, and that might have been before I started the stream. I'm going to try and get the table going before the stream as often as possible. I think it maybe makes for a better stream. Oh, okay. So now I'm going to take this thing that I made and, that should make that thing go away. Cool. Where it said full house, kings full of 3s in the lower right hand corner, or whatever it said. Now it no longer says that. So that should be a little bit prettier, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't bothering you. It was bothering me a little bit. Not a lot, but well, I have these little artifacts of the table. If we can break loose and make it just a little bit prettier. The HUD actually is being directly over. I should have 100% opacity. 0%? Yeah. 0% translucidity. I don't know. All right, so we have an open limp from the low jack, and then we get an ISO from the cutoff, which ends up ISOing the big blind instead of the low jack, but I'm sure they're fine with that. This, if we look at my hand on this flop, this is what I would call, it's kind of the under wrap, but not the under wrap, right? There's a 3-4-5, which would be like the inner wrap. Here, actually, a 3 would make a straight, and a 4 would make a nut straight, but those are the only ones that would yield the nuts. So my understanding is that this is the type of wrap we're going to check back a fair amount, because we don't really want to build big pots if we don't have a lot of outs to the nuts, right? Unless we've already built a big pot, and that would be kind of something that happened more pre-flop. But with a sizable stack to pot ratio, I think we kind of want to control the pot size. We're more likely to win bets in a smaller pot later on with a second nut type hand. It's easier to call because we haven't narrowed their range as much. They're going to have more junk. They're going to have more third best hands, whereas ours is second best, and the first best, maybe it just never existed. Still tweaking my morning routine in terms of trying to get everything done in time. I woke up early this morning, but nonetheless, I think I've been trying to do some other stuff in the morning. I think I'm gonna cut that out. Just like not look at any of the stats. Like, ooh, how many views did I get on YouTube? Like, who cares? Who cares how many? Not a lot, right? It'll be there when it's there. And set aside some time in the evening to do stuff like that and to do stuff like promote and all that. If you're on Twitch, you can, check out the YouTube. It's down there somewhere. You can subscribe on YouTube. YouTube, I think, my understanding is that once the algorithm decides to like you, you can grow really fast there. But it feels like this void when you just put videos out there without having a bunch of subscribers or having, I think I need to make more concrete videos where these, the idea is I'm just kind of uploading all my streams. I'm doing some very light video editing. Let's talk about this hand though. Bottom 2 pair. with a non-nut straight draw. That's exactly the type of hand that I think, you know, benefits from a lot of checking. Now it's bottom 3 pair, which is worse. However, if the board pairs, that's not an 8, then I will have a boat, which I think is probably good because nobody seemed very interested in this pot at all. I'm going to bet $1, and if I get raised, I'm going to be very confused. 8-8, 8-7, and then of course there's 3 varieties of straight flush possible. But they're all very unlikely, as I think people would often bet the turn with a straight flush draw, and they would, if they had the bottom end, they'd have a straight as well, so... let's see what I got called by. I wonder if I got called by a straight or less. 7-5. Oh, they had a boat. Oh, they had the very next best hand. So maybe I could have bet bigger. Thinking about it more, I had 2 pair. I could have thought, oh, somebody else can have 2 pair. Maybe I didn't think that one out enough. I think I can raise this. Seems a little light. All right, top pair. Second kicker, gut shot, not to the nuts. You know, weakish flush draw. This feels like the sort of thing where I could, like, I'm torn, right? And now we'll actually just talk about what I'm doing facing a bet. They full pot it. So if they full pot it, like, I want some nut outs, and I have literally 0 nut outs. I do have a lot, oh, this is not full pot, that's 3/4. Still, I have a lot of equity against a lot of hands, but I'm not really going to be able to play any turns and rivers with confidence, so I'm just folding now. And if they half potted, I wouldn't have, so maybe that's a merit for the 3/4 pot bet, but maybe that's a downside of a 3/4 pot bet. I will mark that hand as it may be fairly controversial. So as always, feel free to tell me what you think I'm doing right, what you think I'm doing wrong, what you'd like to hear more about. We'll check out that hand pre-flop as well. So right now this game seems pretty good, and that's another reason, like, when the game is good, when you have these spots where it feels like, oh, game theory says I'm supposed to call here, it's like, yeah, but how do your opponents play? Why is the game good? Is the game good because your opponents have a slightly inferior understanding of game theory than you do? No, the game is good because my opponents are like, game who? And they're just like, I have cards. I put money in pot. Like let's get chips in the middle. I don't particularly like how I phrase that, but whatever is what it is. The point is that there is a very basic thought process, which perhaps should not be expressed by using very basic grammar. There's a whole thing there. But we'll reflect on that some other time. For now, the point is, like, they don't care what your range is. They don't care what their range is. Generally, they're betting because they want to, and I want to have hands that I'm then going to be able to play confidently on future streets against them. Right? I'm going to want to be able to, like, raise some turns and rivers, right? Bet some turns and rivers when they check, and not fold a lot when they're betting turns and rivers. And that particular hand, like, what turns and rivers was I going to be jazzed if they bet, you know, 3/4 pot again? Which I think when somebody 3/4 pots the flop, like, they're probably looking to put some chips in on a lot of turns and rivers. All right, I'm still talking about that hand, so I'll let it go, and we'll move on. Looking at this table right now, I think the player on the left sat in with a full stack. I'm not certain of that. The very loose, very passive preflop anyway player has now kind of solidified themselves as they've played 90% of their hands, and they're back up to like close to a full stack. So that's nice, actually. I mean, it's unfortunate that some of it came at my expense, but it's fine. And then the top right, you know, they've got kind of like reasonable person stats, but at the same time, they're not topping off, which isn't like a concrete indictment of their ability to play well, but it's often a good sign, right? So on sites that don't have auto reload, I think we need to be a little... Why does this say 0? I guess because 3-handed I raised. That must have been a 3-1. Kevin E. Poker says, meditated today. That was the issue yesterday. Good catch. I'm glad. I'm glad. I hope you have an excellent session right after I hopefully have an excellent session. I flopped 3 pair, and I'm just going to start betting, right? 2, 3, 4, 5 are the only real bricks. Everything else is going to put a straight or pair the board and give me a boat. So I'm not really like, oh yeah, my hand doesn't exactly have robust equity. It has strong equity. It's very hard to be behind at the moment. But I think in these limped pots, I'm going to start either betting the minimum or pot. I think those are going to be the 2 bet sizes I'm playing between. But yeah, I've been meditating 5 minutes, like meditating, right? I mean, I haven't been doing any guided meditations, and I don't have any sophisticated meditation techniques. I have this what's it called? This timer app called Insight, where you just like Insight Timer is what it's called actually. It's like they've got guided meditations and stuff, but I just put on the timer where it hits like a bell or like a bowl, a meditating bowl, whatever, at the start of it, and then 5 minutes later, and then there's like some water and forest kind of sounds in the middle, and it's like a babbling brook or whatever, and I just sit there and breathe and try and lengthen my breathing and just focus on my breathing, listen to my breathing, and thoughts come and go, and I'd say my mind has been a little less clear over the last 2 or 3 weeks than it was earlier on. So maybe I need to like delve a little deeper into that. But just doing that much, I feel like it's something that then later in the day it's easier to come back to and be like, right, let's just take a breath. Let's let go of whatever ridiculous hand just happened or whatever else went on in life. And just move forward, just focused and calm. Let's see. Kevin says, what you're doing right, putting in work every day. Yeah, I mean, the daily nature of it, I think there's a little bit of a grind there, right? Just in terms of like not having a day off. But I don't know, it's funny, even the mornings when I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't feel that good, whatever. Like by the time I get in front of my computer at 10, my time, like I'm focused on poker, and then I'm definitely going to do a session review. And I think always doing at least that little bit. I think I've told this story before, but I from like 2012 until maybe 2017 or 18, or maybe even longer, I did 3 and then 5 chess puzzles a day on chess.com every single day, with almost 0 days missed. And it just, like, my ability to do chess puzzles and my ability to see tactics improved dramatically over that time period. It didn't improve rapidly, right? It was a process of years, but it was like 5 minutes a day. And just doing that little bit, I think really, whatever it is, if we just make sure that it's like it's not 0 every day, right? Every day it's not 0, it's something. I think that helps a lot. To really get where I want to be in Pot Limit Omaha, I have to do more than a 30-minute session review every day. I think, or 20 to 30 minutes, right? I think it's helpful, and I think my progress is continual, not always linear, right? Sometimes we learn something, then as we're learning something else, like it gets a little harder to implement, or something gets cloudy, and then it's still taking us in the right direction, but it's not going like this, right? It's like it's jagged, kind of like our poker graphs, I guess. But yeah, I think I need to increase and do more study. But starting with this, I wanted to start with this and just like lay a foundation. And like this is the end of week 6, right? 6 weeks. Doing like the same thing every morning from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And it does feel like it's just become automatic, where it's like, okay, it's time to do the thing. And it feels like, okay, I've formed a real habit that is foundational and I can build on top of it. And that's what I'm going to do. And sometimes that's going to be studying on my own, watching videos, whatever. And sometimes it maybe is going to be studying with, study buddies or study group. So I'm certainly into doing that. I'm also into having double suited aces with a queen and a jack. That's a very good starting hand. However, I think sometimes like hands like this, I can get into trouble where on a flop like that, like I've got aces, right? I've got backdoor Broadway, and that's it. I have none of this suit. My hand's red and green. The board is black and blue. And they bet 3/4 pot, and I'm out of position. And I need to remember to add some post-flop stats to my HUD. But, you know, over 17 hands, how much is that going to tell us? I'm actually just going to go ahead and fold my aces. Like, maybe it's giving up too much equity. I don't know. But, like, what runouts do I want? I want an ace of spades on the turn. And then I want the board to pair. Like, that's basically it. And so I think this sort of, like, I'm going to use the word non-attachment and contrast that with detachment, but, like, not being attached to a pre-flop hand. Like, pre-flop, it's like, oh, good. Like, yay, I have double suited aces with a queen and a jack. That's clearly one of the best possible starting hands. But then, you know, and be like, yeah, we're going to get as many chips into this pot as possible. And it turned out we couldn't get that many chips into the pot on the flop. I mean, pre-flop. And so on the flop, we had a very deep SPR. And with a shallower SPR, I would not have just check folded at all, right? I might have open jammed if the SPR were low enough that open jam was a thing that could be done. 10-10-4, I'm just going to check fold this. And again, as always, if somebody's like, oh, I can't believe you folded that aces, like, why did you do that? Or, you know, I think you should have done this. Let me know. I'm happy to respond. But, like, you know, I think the word detachment often comes with this idea of, like, pushing ourselves away from things to which we are attached, to which we feel connection. And I don't think that's productive, right? That's like if you're meditating and something comes into your thought, trying to push the thought away. And I don't think that's effective. The idea of non-attachment contrasted with detachment, I think, is more let the thought come and then let the thought go. And here it's like, yeah, aces with a jack and a queen. Like, I got somewhat excited, right? Like, it's a great hand. It's a great spot pre-flop. But by the time before the flop came out, I, like, processed that and, like, let it through, right? Just, like, let it pass through me. And that's not to say that I'm, you know, a perfect example of non-attachment or anything. But I do think in terms of poker, like, when I'm playing well, I don't really get attached to hands and ideas, right? I think that's a thing. It's like we can get attached to ideas and to hands, and that can be to our detriment. Kings with a suit, 6-5 is also a nice, you know, connected side cards. But again, like, seems like we got the wrong flop for the wrong hand. But okay, what do I have? I've got a pair of kings. I've got a straight draw. Okay, so a 4 will give me the nuts unless it's a diamond. A king will give me a very strong hand. And what am I blocking? I'm blocking second nut diamonds. I don't think I have enough that I'm blocking here to really want to fire a C-bet. I do think I have enough potential. Now I'm blocking the second nut flush. And I think I'm going to check this back and bluff river. But I'm not going to bluff river because I have a straight, so why would I bluff river? I'd basically be trying to get a smaller flush to fold. I'm just going to check and take my showdown value. And they have the same straight, but it also happens to give them a flush. So, yeah, I mean, maybe I can get a flush to fold like that. My story that I was selling was like, I have the king of diamonds, so I could have the king high flush. I could check back that flop without an ace. And then on the turn, I could make my flush and be like, okay, I'm going to check it back and value bet the river. So that was, right, that was kind of, let's see, the turn came, the flush came in on the turn. Right, so that was like the story that I was going to be telling. And against the opponent I was playing against, I think that would have been a reasonable story. But my goal wasn't really trying to get them to fold flushes. It was trying to get them to fold all the rest of their range that beats kings. Which is like ace, whatever, you know, aces up, any other two pair, or set. That's like, the board's so gross. So if I hadn't made the straight on the river, I was going to turn my hand into a bluff. And maybe then they would have folded a flush. But that wouldn't have really been the part of their range I was targeting. Let's see. Kevin says, that automatic feeling is great. The idea of not streaming isn't an option anymore. Exactly. Like, I don't wake up. Like, sometimes I think, like, oh, it might be nice to just, like, kind of, like, sleep in. Like, which isn't really a concept I ever held in my mind before as being a thing. It's like I just sleep till I want to sleep. I have an alarm, and I think over the last 42 days, it's gone off and woken me up maybe 3 times. And basically every other time I wake up before it and then, sort of do whatever I do. So the waking up at a certain time has become automatic as well, which is very unusual for me because I would say, like, I am not a morning person historically in terms of waking up early and doing things early. I do really enjoy the feeling of it, but it's just not where my body rhythm usually leads me or where my way of life usually leads me. And that's from well before I was a poker player. But being a poker player certainly did not change that. But yeah. Yeah, so BuffyBot says, I would like more why you folded those aces. Yeah, for sure. So I'll mark the hand. I think I did. Let me double check. And we will talk about it at the end of the session. Yeah, I marked it. Okay, yeah. So we'll get into that, right? I think it's an important concept, and whether or not I'm executing it well, I don't know. But I do have confidence that it works for my game. King Jack 8-9 feels like almost a hand I want to play. King Jack 10-8 I would raise from the hijack. Because I'm not suited to the king, and because this is going to be a multi-way pot, I'm going to fold. But I'm going to mark this, and I think this is potentially a hand that that the Matrix would say I should play or can play. We don't have to play every hand that it says we can play. I think looking at the lineup and thinking, what's going on here? Does this make sense for me? Am I going to get good situations with this hand if I raise or overlimp? I mean, overlimping is a thing we can consider as well. But yeah, like the idea of something being automatic, that for me, that was always like pre-flop in Limit Hold'em became automatic because there are all these charts, and I didn't even study the charts that much. Like I'd write out the chart and then I just remember the chart. And also, though, I guess I did study it by I would like construct ranges and then I would run poker stoves, right? So I'd get very in touch with the ranges, the pre-flop ranges. And so pre-flop, it was like when I was playing a static game, it was just like, yeah, this is these are the hands I'm going to play, and there's not any decision to be made pre-flop. It was just basically recalling where is this in the chart, and it's just all automatic, and it made the game so much easier. Here, this hand I will raise. I mean, it's pretty strong, and it blocks most of the stuff that wants to 3-bet us pretty well. So, so Kevin talks some about the aces, which I'm happy to hear. His equity to continue is very low. Yeah, being out of position with very few ways to improve is a bad spot in PLO. Exactly. That the being out of position is very rough there. Even if the aces are the best hand on the flop, by the river, one pair will very rarely be the best hand. Yeah, so not a lot of ways to improve. Speaking of which, well, you know what? I have ways to improve. I have top pair, and I have 3 kickers to give me top 2, which is kind of nice. I do have the 1 heart blocker, and in a heads-up scenario, this is a flop that I would consider betting with a hand like this. Not to say I definitely would, but, with the king of hearts, if you make it the ace of heart blocker instead, like, now we got something going on. Now I've got backdoor nut diamonds blocked. There's no backdoor. I'm hallucinating. I need an ocean to be able to get there. So that would be the thing that comes after the river. And now I have a great draw going to the ocean, right? Look at this. Any ace, king, queen, or 9 will give me the nut straight. Unfortunately, we're all out of cards. So I'm just going to top off. I don't think this makes a great bluffing hand. I do have a queen, so I am blocking the nut straight with 1 card. But there's not really any room to leverage that, and I would probably want like 2 queens or 2 9s perhaps. But yeah, I think the idea of whether our equity is likely to hold up or not is a really big deal, and how can we get to the river, and just like what kinds of rivers are going to be good or bad. So I will, we'll get into that more in the session review. But I thought during that hand, during which, I mean, I was half checked out, which isn't ideal. So again, now I'm up against this player. Little different scenario. I am going to check again, right? Because I don't think there's a lot I can get value from. Now I have the gut shot. I have top pair, top kicker. I do have a spade blocker. I'm going to half pot it. I think my hand is best very often. The big difference between this and the aces hand is I have a board pair, so that's blocking a lot of the potential two pair and boat combos. And the fours being paired down at the bottom meant that it was going to be a lot harder for my hand to get drawn out on, and it was harder to be behind. So, you know, I still checked the flop, but once they checked it back, with the aces, if they checked back the flop on certain turn cards, I would start betting. And we'll talk about that when I get there. Buffy says, thanks. I do have a what question reaction often before I think it through. Yeah, I mean, I think in if you mostly have played, I kind of want to play this hand, but I don't. It's like, all right, if you come from Hold'em, right? If you've played or watched a lot of Hold'em, a lot of decisions in Pot Limit Omaha can seem very strange, right? Because in Hold'em, like if you have aces, you're just not like check folding the flop heads up. That's just not. I don't think that's a thing almost ever, right? Maybe if you have, you know, red aces and the flop comes 7, 8, 9 of spades and the pre-flop action was a certain thing, and maybe they're jamming for, you know, more than pot or whatever. You're like, all right, I guess, you know, because then you're, you know, slightly ahead, way behind kind of scenarios. But in PLO, it's like a single pair, like just aces. We get two other cards, so like I can have aces on that board, and that I'll talk about after, right? Sort of what other cards could I have with my aces? Because it's not just like aces or not aces, right? There's a lot of aces that you can have. Jack, Jack, 10, 6. If the 6 were a 7, I would flat this. It's a min raise, and maybe I'll like. You could flat this, and I certainly wouldn't say you were wrong. The big blind's very loose and passive. We want to play pots with them. We want to play pots with the razor. The play on our right looks loose and passive. They're 47. Yeah, this is looking good at the table. The player on the left has just folded every hand so far. It's like a brilliant squeeze spot for them, where it's a min raise and a couple people call. But and that would be a great turn card for me, right? I would have the open-ended straight draw and a flush draw, although it's a third not flush draw. And you don't really want the 10 when you have the jack high flush draw. You want like jack deuce, ideally, if you could just pick any two cards. Of course, you do want the 10 because you want the straight draw. Threes with a 6-9. I think I get to fold this. And Buffy says, and then I often need someone to explain. Well, every day I'm here to attempt to explain, but it's also awesome to have Kevin in the chat, who I know has done more PLO work than me in terms of like getting through the from the ground up course. I haven't really been making progress there, and that's something I need to do. I mean, I have access to the course. I got the course, so I've got to put the work in, right? I did put the work in with the PLO Launchpad, and I am putting work in with the PLO Matrix every single day, looking up dozens of hands, really, and getting a little better pre-flop. We'll throw this hand on the pile, just in terms of if I were if it folded to me, right? Once there was a action ahead of me, I'm quite sure that this is a fold, but I think this is a fold, but I'm not 100% certain that from the cutoff, open fold the cutoff. So yeah, it's nice to have someone who I know has gone through those kind of spots a little bit more than I have, in terms of listening to somebody be like, yeah, this is how you should play this type of hand in this sort of situation. I did watch some YouTube videos, actually from PLO Mastermind, which I know Kevin's been getting into, from Luke Botter. I'm not certain I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but I'm quite sure it's Luke, Luuk. And I've enjoyed their YouTube videos. I like to put it on like 1.5 speed or 2x speed because speak like fairly slowly, but clearly. And there's a whole thing about like how to play aces post flop, I think, and sort of like which aces you should bet. And you know, I imagine that's good information, and this is questionable, perhaps. Having an ace is nice because it blocks a lot of 3-bets, it blocks a lot of continues. I don't have the suited ace. With the suited ace, I'm quite confident in this open raise. I'm uncertain about this exact one because I am not suited to the ace. What do I have on this flop? I have a pair of nines. What can I make? I can make a non-nut flush, a non-nut straight. What am I blocking? I'm blocking the straight. I'm blocking some sets and 2-pair, and I'm blocking some flush draws. So I like my hand overall, but facing a pot-sized bet, like when I said what can I make, I could make trips, I could make 2-pair, right? I can make a bunch of non-nut hands. There's already a straight available, and I need a jack to come to where I just have the same straight, but then someone with a king 10 makes a bigger straight. And if a diamond comes, somebody with bigger diamonds makes a bigger flush. So that's just not a spot that I really want to dig into or risk a whole lot in. And they bet full pot, so they get to have the pot. Bet the pot, get the pot. All right, this looks like a folderino. Yeah, it looks like my little gray squares are behaving, and like in the lower right-hand corner, it says high card ace. Oh, you can't even see it because my cursor went behind the thing. Yeah, I added a curtain there. It's not a trick, Michael. It's an illusion. But it keeps some of these unsightly things that stick up. I could cover this up too. Oh, I can actually just move this if I want. Yeah, we don't need average stack there, do we? No, let's just put it up there. That's unsightly. A sore for the eyes. A, a sight for soaring eyes. I don't know. there's some way to completely butcher that phrase. All right, queens with a suit. This shall suffice at this moment. This player has not voluntarily played a hand yet. If they decide to 3-bet here, like, I don't know, single suited queens, 6 deuce are very bad side cards. I am suited to a queen. The fact that it's the first hand that they've 3-bet, I'm actually just gonna pitch it, and we're going to double check that one. We'll double check that one. How many hands have I marked pre-flop? Like a lot. And I do this every session. So when I'm not streaming, I'm still marking hands and still looking things up. All right, so this would not be an open raise, I don't think, from the low jack, and that's theoretically what I'm supposed to play here. But because I have all these loose passive players in here, and I guess the big blind's new. Because of that, though, I'm like, just give me a flop. This is a spot where I actually can get in quite cheap and have the chance to like do something with my kings, right? I mean, I can flop a set. And if I flop a set against these players, it'll be a high SPR situation, and a set in a high SPR situation can be quite nice, particularly when it's top set. And we can set over set someone. So I did not flop a set. What do I have? I have a pair of kings. What can I make? Trips, I guess, with the 7 or the king. What am I blocking? Like the 8 is a blocker, and the 7 blocks, you know, some pair stuff. That's my new flop process. Is as the flop's coming out, consider the SPR, consider the ranges, right? Just kind of get fixed in my mind. Okay, what are the structural elements in this hand that the flop doesn't matter? These are things that are going to be true, or one's true, right? The stack to pot ratio is true. The ranges are perceptions, right? They're assumptions, which I think we need to separate from things that we take as facts, right? it's a fact that this person has $45 remaining. It's an assumption that they are playing probably a fairly tight range, raising from the hijack given their stats, right? If they're limping from the hijack, they're just calling, they're probably going to have a different sort of thing, like more hands. Yeah. But then when the flop does come out, after we've done those things, I'm going to ask myself, what do I have? So let's just look at my hand, right? Which I'm not playing, but what do I have? I have queens and fours. What can I make? Well, I can make a boat, right? And what am I blocking? I'm blocking sets and 2-pair combos, right? So queen four would be pretty strong in terms of I can make a boat, but I only have 4 outs to the boat. Pretty good chance that that hand is best at the moment, well, until the turn anyway. But in terms of what can I make, the additional thing to think about is not just like on there, like I have 2-pair, I can make a boat, that's only 4 cards. I can maintain 2-pair, but that's only going to be like where it is in the sort of hierarchy of nuts for like a minute, right? Like I need like a 2 and a 3, or like a 2 or a 3 and a king for like a straight to not come in. So most cards are going to bring straights. A lot of cards are going to bring flushes on that previous board, right? So a hand like queen four is very vulnerable. So that's the other aspect of what do I mean by like what can I make? Also like what can people make in general? And then what do I block? I think is also a very important question. Like what hands can't people have, or are people less likely to have? And that will inform both our bluffs and our value bets, right? And our sort of equity denial bets where we don't want to get check raised a lot. If we're blocking a lot of check raises, it's easier to make those bets, and we're not going to be folding as much equity because we're not going to get check raised as often. Like if I have aces and I'm blocking the nut flush draw, well, I'm less likely to get raised, right? If I bet, so it's a little easier to value bet. If I have the nut flush draw, then that adds to the what can I make category. And if I have aces and top pair, or if in a board like this I had like aces and tens, now I'm blocking the straight. This isn't really the kind of board I was thinking about in terms of aces and a blocker, though. I was like, let's say it's like king jack 8, right? And I have ace ace king. Well, now I'm blocking top pair, top set, top 2, and I don't really want to block top pair in terms of I want to get called by top pair. But on the flop, I think in PLO, getting called by top pair when you have an overpair is not quite the EV bonanza that it is in No Limit Hold'em. All right, king, queen, 10, 8 double suited. This feels like the sort of hand that plays well heads up, but not as well multi-way because the king high and queen high suits lose value. Having said that, there's enough connectivity. I can make enough nut straights that against these cats, I think I do have a call. But it's the type of hand that I'm going to make, have more folds multi-way than heads up, I think. So I will mark it just immediately. And all right, I didn't talk through it, but I thought through it. What do I have? I have top pair. What can I make? I can make the nuts. So I made the nuts. Now, when I think about what am I blocking, or still what can I make, I have a lot of equity robustness. So I'm going to bet 3/4 pot, not full pot. I think having a flush draw to go with the straight is the sort of thing where I'm okay betting a little less. Getting calls isn't really too concerning because I can improve, first of all. And if my opponents improve to a flush and it's not the nut flush or the second nut flush, I mean, either way, they all folded. But, that was just a dream turn card. If it was like a king of diamonds or a jack of diamonds, sorry, so that there was a nut flush there, draw there, that wasn't the one I had, maybe I'm more likely to full pot it. Although my turn bet sizing game is it needs the work. That's where I need to put in the like 2 hours of work a day, right? My pre-flop game, I think is, while not flawless, is coming along nicely, right? If I just keep doing what I'm doing pre-flop, I think I will have a very strong pre-flop game, in a matter of months. I can also increase that, and I've got a spreadsheet of heuristics, like, always 3-bet ace king king single suited from small blind versus cutoff, raise first in, stuff like that. And there's just a list of them. And what I should do is I should put all those on flashcards and just cycle them, just go through them every morning, right? Or every night, or every day just before. I can have that be a pre-session warm-up. That's a good pre-session warm-up. Just go through the heuristics, you know. I could also put them in like an Anki deck and then have ones that are more at the front of my brain, cycle through more often. It's a thought. It's a thought. And then ones that I'm like, oh yeah, I keep forgetting that. Be like, okay, show me again in 10 minutes. But not 10 minutes, because I'm not going to study like that. It'll be like a number of days, right? That's how we shall do it. Yeah. Let's see what we got here. A very red, white, and blue looking flop. I guess, you know, happy day of the day that it is. I don't know. I prefer to think that I have more of an international audience, so not so U.S. centric. I won't get into all my political thoughts during a poker stream. We'll leave those. If you want to listen to some podcasts where I espouse various radical points of view, you can listen to Superhero Ethics podcast. It's pretty easy to search for it. And even in the Star Wars universe podcast, I get into some of that stuff. But I think poker is poker, and I like to focus on poker when I'm playing poker. Which doesn't mean that I don't like to talk about other stuff. But if I were like multi-tabling, then I'd say maybe having more, like having a poker and chatting. I'd rather do like chess and chatting, because I think playing a game for money while having conversations about things that are potentially... let's focus on this hand. Okay, double pair with the flush draw. I think often we usually are going to call 3-bets here. The player behind me concerns me a little bit, because they're going to have a lot of overpairs to my 3s and 4s, and I'm actually going to make a fold, a speculative fold, which is like the opposite of speculative, but it's like, it's like, it would be like selling all my Bitcoin today, because whatever. And that is a phenomenal flop for my hand. Makes me immediately regret my life choices. They bet half pot. I might just like call here in this spot. I could just jam, and then they've got like, you know, ace 5 or whatever, and they're like, all right, let's go. This is the sort of hand that can give you nightmares. But this player behind me being so tight, I think is going to make my hand play not as well. First of all, my suit to the 4 has a lot more power heads up, where it's adding equity, than multi-way, where it's just not going to be good as often, right? Having that 4 high flush draw to go with whatever is not going to be good as often. And yeah, so they've got an overpair, and they've probably got an overpair. Maybe they have a wrap. I don't know. This feels like kings to me on the button. It could be some kind of rundown. If they have a rundown, then I would think they just bink 2 pair, or maybe they're calculating they have like a straight draw now. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I mean, if this is kings, feel like you can probably just fold there. I don't know. Pretty interesting hand. That's a hand that I'm going to... I've already marked it pre-flop. I'm going to mark it as strange hand, and I want to see what they had and kind of how those players played what they had and how my hand does against what they had. And at the end of the session, we're going to crack open the matrix, the PLO matrix from Upswing Poker. Link in the description, or on my about page or something. I've got panels now in my stream. But yeah, I'm going to check that out, and I want to compare. So first of all, I raise cutoff, small blind 3-bets. I'm confident that I get to call that, and I want to double check that assumption. But with a player having cold called me behind and somebody squeezing, that would be cutoff versus squeeze. I'm not confident that I can play that. In fact, I think I can't. With the 8 and the deuce and the like extra spade, I'm gonna fold this hand. Okay, session review time. Let's go. Pocket 4s and pocket 3s. I raise, I get cold called, I get 3-bet, and now I have to decide, do I want to play this hand against a squeeze? So the first thing I'm gonna do is check my assertion that what I do want to do is call this against a single raiser, right? So I'm in the cutoff, 100 blinds. I raise. This is going to be single suited fours, right? So may the fours be with you. I don't know. So this is a hand that I want to raise and call. So 4-4-3-3 single suited is RFI call from cutoff. Period. Okay. So that's cool. So in the past in this spot, I was like, oh yeah, I just call, right? That's it. I just call. But there's actually another thing. I can go in and select, I could bring this RFI versus squeeze. And what I want to do is cut off 100 big blinds cut off. Are we 100 blinds deep? Yes, we're 100 blinds deep. So 100 big blinds cut off, 4-4-3-3 single suited, and I'm still supposed to call, right? So 4-4-3-3 single suited is still RFI call from cutoff versus squeeze. All right, so according to the charts, I can play this, and I probably would have won a stack unless they have like ace 8-8-8 or like ace king 8-8 double suited or something like that where they set overset me. But that board was phenomenal. Most of the time, I'm just going to call, and the flop's going to come, and I'm going to fold. Most 4-4-3-3 single suited, that RFI from cutoff, calls versus squeeze. All right, so that's just kind of a general thing, right? 4s and 3s, 4s and 2s, suited ace with pocket 4s. Did I say, yeah, most, no, that's not most 4-4 single suited. That actually makes sense. The ones that we're folding are like ace 10 or ace queen suited to the queen, and then ace king and ace 8 if we are ace king suited to the king. If we are out of position, which would mean raising, getting 3-bet, then a cold caller. So it's not technically a squeeze situation, right? We can't actually be out of position. Oh, or maybe it's if we raise, button folds, small blind call. So it goes like raise, fold, call, and then squeeze. And in that spot, then we're in position. Oh, but if we're out of position, yeah, we can never be out of position to the person who squeezed. It's just like if the button cold calls, then with like ace 8 suited to the ace. So here, whatever. All right, so this would have been a brilliant flop for my hand. But you know, you can't let how the flop would have come out really affect you, right? It can be like, oh, that's annoying. Okay, whatever, gone, right? Like, feel it, let it go. Yeah, I am curious what these players actually had, particularly what the button had, right? Because, you know, this is the second hand they played in, this is their 21st hand, it's the second hand they played. And they played one aggressively, one passively. I do think they're going to have a lot of king-king type hands here. What do they have here that they flatted there? I don't know. I think they probably flopped an overpair. This feels like king-king to me. It could have been like in like ace 4-5. I don't know. It's hard to come up with other stuff that makes any sense here. Maybe like double suited queens that had a couple backdoor flush draws and then bricked out. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. All right. This hand, this is also like a squeeze spot, right? But I'm in the position where I can squeeze. I do go ahead and call, but I want to test my assertion about this being the type of hand that we're actually going to fold more with additional players in the pot as opposed to heads up. So let's go to big blind versus MP. And first we'll look king, queen, double suited, 10-8. That's actually this is a 3-bet. This is a 3-bet. Heads up. So king, queen, 10, 8, double suited. Good suit is 3-bet call. Big blind versus hijack. Bad suit is flat call. Right? So there's that. And basically any king, queen, 10 double suited, those are all calling. Right? So now I'm going to go and look at, instead of big blind versus middle position, I'm going to look at big blind squeeze. Unfortunately, they only have under the gun and cutoff. So I'll look at both and kind of compare them. So I've got king, queen, double suited. Now this hand against the under the gun, way fewer combos, right? So king, queen, 10-8, double suited. Good suit is, we'll say flat. in big blind versus low jack in squeeze spot, right? So that's we'll say good suit and bad suit. So that's a flat, but then I will go back and I will look at what do I do versus a cutoff squeeze situation. So king queen double suited again. Yeah, so this looks a lot more similar. And then we'll say good suit is 3-bet versus cutoff squeeze. Or it's 3-bet squeeze versus cutoff RFI, right? So that means it's a squeeze. Bad suit is flat call. And the last thing I want to look at is what do I do with this hand against the low jack if it's yeah, so okay. A lot of hands actually. King, queen, 10, 8, double suited, good suit, bad suit is 3-bet call in big blind versus low jack. Many, or actually all king queen double suited that we play. Oh, I'm looking at the low jack RFI. That's why it looks so strange. That's just totally wrong. Big blind versus low jack. Right. So we'll look at that again. Is call in big blind versus low jack. Okay. So, what have we learned? I guess we've learned that what I was saying isn't that true, right? If I look at big blind versus under the gun, and then I go back and I look at big blind squeeze under the gun for the same hand class. No, okay. No, I'm wrong. Actually, way more. I'm going to show it because I think it's a pretty big deal. We're going to bring this over. So I'm going to bring this over. Here we go. This is how we play king, queen, double suited, big blind versus squeeze under the gun. So we only 3-bet jack 10 and 10, 9. So king, queen, jack 10, king, queen, 10, 9, double suited, right? Doesn't matter whether it's suited the best way or the second best way or third best way or whatever. And then just these other ones call, right? So we want 2 more good cards to go with it. And then with like a deuce and a jack, apparently we can play it, but not these other ones. I think because the deuce like unblocks hands we want them to have or something. But that's some like weird solver stuff. But if we think about this, and then now we're going to go back and we're going to just look big blind versus low jack or under the gun, king, queen. Now anything with the second Broadway card is all calling, right? So we're playing way more than these connected things, and we're 3-betting king, queen, jack 9 when suited to the king and the queen. So clearly, this exact combination is played basically the same way, right? Whether it's a 3-bet against cutoff or a flat against the low jack, and like maybe we can 3-bet this hand in this exact spot. But hands like it, where if you make the 8 a weaker card, now we can defend it against the raise, but we can't defend it multi-way, right? Because having that one weaker card, and what I was saying was like, I think that this is pretty decent to defend because of the connectivity, right? So if we start losing that connectivity, that's the type of hand we want to pitch. And we're going more into the like double suited junk kind of range. So I flop, top pair, gut shot, 2 backdoor flush draws. I don't think leading here would necessarily be horrible. I've got a lot of stuff that can come. I really only have the 4 outs to the nuts, but I have a lot of good turn cards that I can potentially barrel on. I did check. I'm mostly checking in spots like these. If I talk about range, kind of anybody can have some king, right? I'm blocking that, and that's like the hand people are going to be most excited about here. 9-9 is possible. King 9 is possible. Like 3-3 these people can have as well, but it's going to be less likely in general. Everybody checks around, and now I'm thinking about bet sizing, and the question was like, do I want to go big because like I have a great hand and I have a redraw, or do I want to go smaller because I have a great hand and I have a redraw? And if somebody wants to get some chips in there, my hand is pretty robust equity. Yeah, a heart can come and that hurts me a little bit. The board can pair, but I'm blocking everything that can beat me. If the board comes out in a way that can beat me. So I go with 3/4 pot, which is kind of like I don't know whether I want a half pot or full pot, so I'll go 3/4. And I think it's fine. You know, it's the sort of spot that I want to study deeper later. I don't think it matters that much. You know, I think that's the sort of thing that matters more when you're getting to a higher level. Right now, just stuff like this. Like, do I play this against a 3-bet? Like, that's more the question. And spoiler alert, I folded, which I think is pretty questionable. We're going to take a look. Small blind, open raise, queen, queen, single suited, with the queen, queen, 6 deuce. Oh, it's not questionable at all. This is just straight up how this hand is supposed to be played. Queen, queen, 6 deuce, single suited. Good suit is RFI fold. Bad suit is limp fold, which I'm not really going to be doing, but that's what the strategy would be. So this is just like correct, right? This is just what the game theory tells us to do. The fact that this player's even like pretty tight, so I think they have a stronger than average range here, likely like weighted towards being stronger. It makes me like this more. And even if it were like barely a call, then I think folding it would have been fine. All right, next hand. Let's double check that we don't. Yep, okay. I open this. I think this is questionable. I think it's probably too loose. I think this was probably too loose. Let's take a look. Ace 10, 9, 7. This is not too loose. This is a raise. This is a raise fold. So we will make that note. So at the table, I wasn't sure. Then afterwards, I second guess myself. Is RFI fold, bad suit, call, good suit. All right, so basically if I'm suited to the ace, I get to call a 3-bet. I'm not suited to the ace, so this is kind of like I like to think of it as like a pre-flop semi-bluff, right? Like I'm raising, if I catch a flop, maybe I get some equity. Here I've got some equity, but oh, they full pot it. I think this is the sort of spot where it's like really easy to get yourself into trouble, especially as like a hold'em player going like, oh, I've got a pair and I've got a flush draw and I've got a straight draw. I'm like, oh, I've got so many things. I could even catch like a 6 and a 5 and then I make another straight. But like this, how am I gonna make the nuts? I need a jack and a king, like, or like a 10 of diamonds and then a jack of diamonds or a 6 of diamonds, or like running 9s, right? Those are like the ways I make the actual nuts. Like running aces, I'd feel pretty good. But pot size bet on the flop, not that much money left behind. So if this was like, if the other player weren't behind me, maybe I call this and then just get it in on turns. Maybe I just jam flop. I don't know. Let's pop up the equity calculator and see what happens with this hand. If we just like delete this, give them something like jack, 10, 8, 4. So they basically just have the nuts. They don't have anything else. Am I gonna have? I would need like 42, 43% equity to want to get it in against them. I don't think I'm gonna have that. I do think I'm gonna have how much equity? Let's see, close to 40. I'm gonna have in the 40 ballpark. Them having an 8 is not great. Yeah, 44. Okay. Oh, I do have 42%. So if I could get all in with this, I mean, and of course they can have jack 10 with other better stuff than what I gave them, so that would be worse. But like at this stack depth, having a hand like this where we have a lot of equity but not a lot of really good runouts is more favorable than if we're deeper, right? Because one of the things that makes this hand very vulnerable, if this was an all-in bet, I think call it all day long, right? Except this player behind us makes it trickier. But heads up, all in with this, like, yeah, let's do it, right? Because I have so many ways of winning. And if we're all in on the flop, I don't have to worry about my hand's playability on future streets. And that's where stack to pot ratio, SPR, you know, how much money we have left to bet compared to how much money is already in the middle is just so important. And it's such a critical concept in Pot Limit Omaha. Ha 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 ha. Okay. There's a limper, but I wanted to just see, do I raise this in the cutoff even? Let's see, double suited 3s. I definitely don't raise it middle position. Yeah, this is just going to be a fold, right? It's just a fold. It's very clearly a fold. Let's even see, do I raise this on the button? Double suited 3s? I think maybe. No, but I raised tons of hands with a 5. That is a really weird looking chart. Let's just bring this over. Look at this chart. Like, these are the double suited 3s I'm supposed to raise. So, like, with a 10-5, a 9-5, an 8-5, but not with a 10-4, 9-4, 8-4, or 10-6, 9-6. Like, what is that? That's the solver being just like, I'm not human. I don't have to live by your weird constraints of logic, and yet I am infallible. Although not really infallible, but you know. 3s with a 9-6 is fold, even on button. Okay, so good to know. Next hand, and I fold it, right? Yep, there we go. All right, King Jack 9-8, 2 calls to me, and I fold. I think this is maybe close. We'll go back and we'll look at King Jack single suited. This is, I want to look at my middle position range, right? Because I'm the button, but then there's a limper. I move it to the cutoff. There's another limper. I consider like I'm going to use my middle position range. Also, the big blind's so loose that I'm going to take a lot of flops. And I do have connectivity, but my flushiness is kind of subpar, and the gaps are towards the top of my hand, not the bottom. So I don't love this this structure. King Jack 8-9 is a fold in middle position. So King Jack 8-9 or 9-8 single suited is fold in hijack. And let's just double check cutoff, because theoretically I could raise some cutoff hands here and have it not be too bad. And so we'll say good suit is RFI in cutoff. Bad suit is fold in cutoff. Right, so even this exact combo, I would actually fold in the cutoff. And I believe I would raise it on the button. Let's just double check that. King Jack 9-9, yeah. So this, I raise the button all day, right? So if it folds to me, I mean, I'm the button. If it folds to me, I raise first in from the button. But when people call ahead of me, this is just a fold. Okay, and I did fold it. Double suited aces. Okay, here's the hand that BuffyBot was talking about. So I raise, awesome, right? Great hands. I get cold called one time, and now the flop comes out. All right, let's start with the things that are true. There's $8.50 in the middle, although they've raked some. So we'll call it $8. I have about $100 in my stack, right? We could call it 96, whatever. 12 times 8 is 96, eh? So we've got a 12-to-1 stack to pot ratio, right? Meaning I have 12 times as much money left to be bet as there is in the pot. And this player here has me covered, right? So my stack size is the effective stack size. So that's what matters. So I want to look at, on this board, step one, what do I have? I have aces, right? So I have one pair, the best one pair ever invented. And kicker doesn't matter because it's an overpair. Cool, that's a good hand. That's going to have some good equity right now. Okay, what's next? What can I make? Like, what cards do I want to come off? A king can come, and if it's not a diamond, then I'll have a wrap. And then if an ace, queen, jack, or 9 come, which are also not a diamond, or not a spade if the turn were a spade, then I can make Broadway, so I can make the nuts. So I have a backdoor straight draw on a flush board. I can make a boat if I hit an ace and then the board pairs, or if the board trips up. So I have these ways of making very strong hands, but they're like, I think you could see they're all runner, and they need very specific cards. So that's not great. I can turn a set of aces also. So I actually have one out to the nuts, right? The ace of spades would give me the nuts. Then there'd be 2 flush draws on board, and any card that came off that didn't pair the board would complete a straight, would make a straight possible. So, you know, and the ace of diamonds would put a flush on board. So there's so few turn cards that are going to be good for my hand. My hand has good equity now, but is usually going to have poor equity on the turn or be very vulnerable, right? It's going to go from being here in the nuttiness echelon to like down here, right? So it's going to be very hard to play, particularly because we have this 12-to-1 stack to pot ratio. That means I can check and my opponent can bet pot, and they can bet pot, and they can bet pot. And so I do check, because my hand, I'm not going to be able to play it with confidence on future streets very often at all, right? And my opponent does bet. They bet 3/4 pot, which I think is a pretty good bet size. I basically have to make a decision now, like, what am I going to be able to do on future streets if I call this bet? Because I don't get to call this bet and they're all in. If they were all in with this bet, I would snap call this bet, right? They can have me beat. They cannot have me beat. It's a little bit of a like slightly ahead, way behind, but the pot odds are great and there's no more betting. However, that's not the case. I'll have $90 left and there'll be 20 in the middle. So they can go pot and get almost all of it in. So that's going to be, my hand's going to be very vulnerable to bluffs on future streets, and also very vulnerable to, if I defend myself against those bluffs, I'm going to be giving them a lot of money, right? So that's why I go ahead and fold this. There's a third component to the question, which is like, what am I blocking? And I'm blocking nothing, right? I'm not blocking anything relevant. I'm not blocking any of the straight draws. I'm not blocking any of the flush draws. And that's fine, because that means that they're going to have like bluffs in their range. Those hands are going to have good equity against me though. And I'm not blocking them from completing those draws at all with any of my cards. But I'm also not blocking, 10-10, 6-6, 5-5, 10-6, 6-5, 10-5, right? I'm not blocking any of the hands that beat me right now. Like they can have a set right now. And I don't have any cards in my hand that make that less likely. If I had a 10 in my hand, I'd like this a little better, because now I'm blocking top set, top two, top and bottom, right? And if I had like an ace of diamonds, if I had ace of diamonds and then like a 10 of clubs here, right? That's not as nice. Those aces aren't as pretty pre-flop, but on this flop, I would be blocking the nut flush draw. Maybe I can bluff if the diamonds come in. I'm blocking a lot of value hands that can continue, ones with a 10. So that's why I folded this hand. And I'll just reread what Kevin wrote, because I thought it was really good. Kevin said, his equity to continue is very low. Being out of position with very few ways to improve is a bad spot in Pot Limit Omaha. Even if my aces are the best hand on the flop by the river, one pair will rarely be the best hand, right? So there's just so few ways for this board to run out and my aces to still be good, if they're even good right now. So I fold. And that's the session review. And that's sort of the value that I get a lot of value out of just putting that thought process into words, right? And then hearing another player who I respect being like, yeah, this is why that works the way it does. So I thought that was a very instructive hand. And, meanwhile, I wasn't super confident in it, but talking about it now and hearing another player be like, yeah, I agree with that. I'm like, okay, cool. Because like folding aces, like it's not fun, right? It's not like, oh, good, I get to fold all this equity. I mean, I had equity, but I just didn't have an effective way of realizing that equity. Similarly here, I have equity. This is better than the last hand in some ways, right? First we've got pre-flop. Let's just peek at pre-flop. Okay, button, king, queen, single suited with a 9-6 bad suit. Yeah, this is RFI fold, right? So I guess I'll mark it just in case. RFI fold. Was it king, queen, 9-6 bad suit is RFI fold from button. And even if I was good suit, I actually raise fold this combo, because the connectivity is like, as you'll see here, it's a little dicey. I've got the 9-6, but the 8 doesn't make me the straight. But let's go through the process from the beginning, right? Okay, $8 in the middle, 64 in the stacks. That's 8-1, right? 8 times 8 is 64. 8-1 stack to pot ratio. That means if they bet a little less than pot, or like they go ahead and they bet this 3/4 pot, they can go pot, all the chips are in, right? So we're at a low enough SPR that they can get all the chips in on the river, but not so low that I can just, like, if this was all in, snap call, right? I've got top pair. I've got a flush draw. I've got a straight draw. I've got some back doors, right? I'm blocking top pair, top two, top set. So that's nice, but we've got all that money left to bet, right? And this is a fairly passive player, and they've said, like, I'm just going to lead out into you. I have top pair. Cool. So what do I have? I have top pair, right? What can I make? I can make a non-nut straight. I can make a non-nut flush. I can make 2 pair combos, all of which put straights on the board. I can make top trips, or I can make trips with a second kicker, right? Which doesn't pull me ahead of a lot of value hands my opponent can have. It pulls me ahead of ace and 10-7. That's it. And then what am I blocking? All right, I'm blocking top set, top two, top and bottom. That's nice. I'm blocking ace king. So that's a good thing, right? The bad thing is that I'm blocking a lot of flush draws. I'm blocking a lot of straight draws. Yeah, so if they come in, it's a little less likely they have them, but right now they're more weighted towards value hands like 7-7, 10-10. I don't know. This is interesting because it's tricky, right? Where I probably either have decent equity against them beating me, or I'm ahead right now and I'm blocking some of their outs if they have good, outs to make strong hands. So I think you could argue much more effectively for a call here. Um, and I folded it, but yeah, compared to the aces, right? So Spokel says, "Yo, nice looking hand." Which which one? I may agree. um, but yeah, this one, oh no, I folded. And so I am actually kind of talking myself into. I think probably I do actually want to call this hand, because factors that make this different from the aces, right? I'm in position, and I do have a lot of good blocking stuff, right? And again, I'm in position, and I was talking about how all the cards, like the two pair cards, oh no, yeah, oh, sorry, I gotta do 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 do. Yeah, so yeah, the ace ace jack queen is what Spokel was saying, was a very nice looking. It was nice looking. This is a less nice looking hand, but it's just a better flop than the aces got. The aces went down tragically, on that very very unace friendly board, right? I didn't have the other cards. Here you could be like, well, king queen is your made hand, right? But this 9-6 actually adds significant value, and I don't know. I think maybe it was because I was like, this player is pretty loose and passive. And I'm not saying this is necessarily a mistake. I'm saying if you said, okay, do you want to call those aces on that other board, or do you want to call this hand on this board? Like, I would call this hand on this board for sure, right? Both were facing 3/4 pot bets. So here I did fold, and this one I'm not as sure about, right? The main thing to me was like, I'm not going to be able to play with confidence on any turn card. There's not a single turn card that I'm going to be psyched to see, right? So that's why I folded. But I have position, so maybe I can call. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Chime in the chat about this one, King Queen 9-6, or on YouTube in the comments below. I think this is the most questionable hand. I think the other hand was pretty clear. And this is going to be the last one. And if anybody has any comments, I can cycle back to the last one. But ace 10, 8 deuce, double suited. There's a raise, and I fold. Okay, let's see this. This might be a call. The deuce is a bad card. And after looking up that king queen double suited, I think that this, because the 8 connects to the 10, I think like ace 10 6 deuce or stuff like that is going to get folded, but this might be a little too tight. We'll just see big blind versus under the gun first. Ace 10 double suited, with an 8 deuce is a call. It's the bottom of the calling range. Ace 10 8 deuce, double suited is call. Big blind versus low jack, bottom of calling range. Good suit or bad suit. Okay, so it doesn't matter. Like, double suited, you're always suited to the ace, right? You're always suited to each of your cards. So, like, being suited to the 10 or being suited to the 8 isn't that big of a deal, apparently. So, I think the best combo of this would be the ace deuce suited and the 10-8 suited, because then you have 2 straight flush draws also. And, like, who doesn't want 2 straight flush draws? Okay, but now I'm going to look at the squeeze spot, where we are big blind, squeezing versus under the gun. And I think this hand, ooh, yeah, okay, so we found one. I'm gonna bring this over, right? So here's the matrix. This is ace 10 double suited, big blind squeezing against the under the gun. So that was the scenario we just had, right? I'll pop it back up here. Ace 10 deuce 8. So we get a raise, we get a call, and then it folds to us. And this hand we're supposed to fold, right? Whereas if it were raised and then folded to us, we're supposed to call. And this is the chart for that exact scenario that we just saw, right? 8 deuce, 8-3, 8-4, 9-5, 9-4, 9-2. These all fold in this spot. Even ace 10, 6-5, I would probably call that one. But now if we go back and we look at just big blind, versus under the gun or the low jack, and we go to ace-10 double suited, look how many more hands we can call. In fact, we're actually 3-betting a bunch of hands there. We're 3-bet folding them. Whereas I think the other one we had some 3-bet calls. But here, like 8-3, 8-4, 8 deuce, all of these 9x, these all get to call because we're heads up and we only have to beat one person. So if we go back to this thing, what we can see is here I have an ace high flush draw and a 10 high flush draw, and like I've got some cards that aren't super connected, but they connect some. Against one opponent, that 10 high flush draw can add a significant amount of value to my hand. Against two opponents, the value from that 10 high flush draw, or it could be an 8 high flush draw if I was suited like ace 10 and 8 deuce, it goes down a lot by having the additional opponent in the pot. My equity gets eroded by a third person being in there. Yes, I have better pot odds, but I need more, right? I don't need as much equity, but I need more hand in order to proceed well post flop. And so I think not only does my equity, not my equity take a hit, no, my equity does take a hit, but it's not so much that the equity takes a hit relative to the pot odds. I think it's that the playability takes a hit. And so this hand is contrasted with, I'll pop up this other one here, where it's a very similar scenario, except it was hijack and there were two callers, but still this hand, the solver likes this hand a lot better. And no, there's no ace high flush draw, but it's the connectivity. All the cards work together. So I think there are going to be more flops where a hand like this is going to do very well. And this flop's okay, but then we'll just leave it there. We'll leave it there. That's a pretty turn card. And, you know, unfortunately I raised and everybody folded, but that happens. That's fine. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. That's been it for today, the end of the 6 weeks of this thing. Thanks for being with me. It really makes it more fun. If you're on YouTube, go ahead, like and subscribe. And I'll catch you later. Peace.